Are you ready to perform at your highest potential? Thank you for joining this GP Strategies webinar, where we'll explore best practices and innovative insights to help you and your organization improve performance.
So I'm really excited for you guys to see a live demo session of GP's Learning Content AIQ. And thanks again for being here. Now let me introduce you to Jeff. Jeff Fissel is the VP of Technology for us here at GP Strategies. Hello, Jeff.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Kim. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you wonderfully.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to be here, and we've got an audience from all over the world. I love this. So thank you. Please keep this interactive, ask questions, interrupt, do whatever we can. This will be fun, and it's going to be a action-packed 30 minutes here. So I am going to start with a short bit of, I promise, only 3 slides. And then I promise we will get right back into the live demonstration and tempt all the demo fates of demoing a live generative AI tool, because why not make it more fun? So today I'm going to be talking to you about our Content AIQ product that we have built inside of GP. We like to refer to this tool as a co-pilot for people that create learning that was designed by learning creators. So we initially built this tool to use internally inside of GP Strategies with our learning design, all the learning people across GP. And it set out to solve, I'll say, kind of 2 areas of problems. First was, how can I trust the content that is created with generative AI tools? And this is all about minimizing hallucinations. How do I get valid organization-specific content and leverage the power of generative AI to do that? And beyond just uploading a PDF to a chat prompt and doing that, like, how do I do that at scale with organizational knowledge? And I'll show you how we kind of tackled that with our concept of knowledge bases that we've embedded in the tool. And then the second problem we saw was, once people, I'll say, got past the party trick of watching AI write words and they started reading the words, they realized that, like, sometimes it wasn't that engaging. It wasn't that interesting. It could have been sort of boring content that, and definitely not anchored on good learning design that the generative AI tools were creating. So we said, how do we solve that? And a lot of that was solved in the advent of agents, prompt chaining, and embedding expertise into the tool to kind of help it learn how to do that. And I'll walk you through how we did both of those sort of things. So the last bit is to kind of walk through this framework. I'm sure we're all in learning and development being asked to do more, better, faster. And my hope through all of this is that we focus on the better part of it and the faster part of it, not the more. Because I don't think the world needs a ton more generic e-learning content out there. So let's try to say, how do we get higher quality content and how do we use AI to do that? So the first part of this is actually building those knowledge bases of trusted content. So we're going to want to ingest and deconstruct existing content that you all have, whether that's e-learning files, PDFs, PowerPoints, videos, Word documents, ILTs, all of the stuff that's there. And we're going to use a series of agents that can read through that content, do that really tedious task of clicking next through all your e-learnings, build it, categorize it, and organize that into these trusted knowledge bases of content. We believed in this so much, we've done it with our own IP. So if you happen to license any of our Content Flex offerings with leadership and technical skills, we can embed that directly in the tool. And this becomes an amazing time to layer in skills data as well. As we're thinking about our skilling strategies, how do we understand what knowledge we have in our organization covers what skills today? And we call this kind of the knowledge base building layer. And this is that really important part of building that trusted, that solid foundation to work off of. Then you get to start to create new. But with the power of AI now, you can start to create new in almost a, I'll say, a modality neutral kind of way, an outcome focused way, based maybe on skills data as well. And I can say, hey, I want to build something new based only off of this trusted information. And then you can leverage the power of AI to say, hey, help me take this and shape it into a script for a video or a podcast, content for an e-learning, assessments, ILTs, chat experiences, blends, all those sort of moments of learning need that happen out there. How do we start to address more of them? Where we traditionally were only focusing on the early moments, I think AI allows us to hit a bunch of those kind of places that people need and make content much more accessible. And that's where that expertise comes in of what good looks like. How do we write a good video script? How do we build good assessments? And that's where GPs built these agents that build that expertise in. It turns out over the decades of building content for people, we actually had a lot of opinions on this, and we've embedded that expertise into these agents so you don't have to do that. So when I show you the tool here in a second, we ask it to write a video script, you're going to see it's going to have that expertise built in to create that higher quality video script. So I don't see any questions yet. I promised I wouldn't spend much time on slides, so I'm going to click out of these slides here, and I'm going to click over to a live demonstration. So give me 1 second to pull that up, and we'll do that. All right. Hit share, and I'm going to share this screen. All right, Kim, I know you're still there. You can see my screen. You'll be my technical
Yes, I
checker
can.
here.
See it
Awesome.
there.
We're going to start on the least compelling user interface of the product here, but I think it's the important bit of how do you start to build that trusted content, and that comes from content that you've vetted and want to load into the system. Whether that's manually loading it by dragging and dropping and bulk loading, using the API to connect it to your LMS and pull stuff in dynamically, or even pointing it to websites and other specific content that you have as trusted, vetted sources. But when you start to load content in here, whether it's e-learning files like zip files that you see here, which I'll call out as a rather unique thing. A lot of the AI tools that are out there don't know what to do with learning today. So we've started to solve that. Or ILT sessions, guides, different things that are here. But what we're doing on the back end is we're actually kind of chunking that up. So you'll see here kind of raw content, summaries, categories, chunks. We are kind of deconstructing what's going on in that content, and we won't read all this because we never would, but we're making it kind of in an AI friendly way so that the tool's ready to start to do things with it. We're also tagging that content to a skill taxonomy if you load that in. And we do a couple things here to, I'll say, to make this even more engaging. Oh, this one has a couple more skills tied to it and a higher quality. First is we ask AI to provide its confidence rating and how confident it is in tagging that. Then we also ask it to provide a written reasoning of why it associated that skill to that piece of content and to cite its sources. So this is not the most human readable bit, but this is actually the and we'll make this more human readable soon. But it's linking back to the pages in specific courses that it found that reference, so that I can read this content. And this did two things. One, it actually dramatically improved the quality of the tagging. This is kind of a best practice in AI of like sort of chain of thought or tree of thought as you're working through things to show your work. If we're thinking about it in a non-technical way, it improves the quality. But then also it helped build trust in the system so that the humans that were using this could read this and agree with it or not and ask it to go back and redo it if it got it wrong. So we're trying to remove a lot of the black box elements that happen in a lot of the generative AI tools so you understand why it made a decision. So files are great, and a lot of AI tools stop at the level of load files, do things with those files. But we wanted to add a layer in here that helps validate that knowledge. And that's what we call the knowledge bases. So knowledge bases allow me, you can create as many of these as you want, to select multiple files and then have the AI determine the topics that are covered across all of those files. It will do that automatically using a series of agents that we have. You can validate those topics, and then it actually goes a step deeper and breaks out the entities and the content relationships that exist within that content. So this is actually the knowledge that's there. And we give you the ability to edit or manipulate this because in a lot of cases, if you're loading large amounts of content, you might have old courses or new courses, and you might have contradicting information. And it turns out AI doesn't know that it's contradicting. And if you don't correct that, it will have a downstream effect on all the derivative art that you create from this. So working and making sure that this is correct and updated is really important. So you might be thinking to me right now, man, I really don't want to read all this. This seems like a lot of work. And this is where we start to leverage power of AI to help do that. We've added a chat feature in here that's kind of like a semantic search where I can start to ask it questions about this. So I can say, what are the core principles of the X model? And it based only on the information here, this is going to go ahead and start to answer that question for me. And this again serves two purposes. You can almost think of this as a virtual subject matter expert. So maybe this content isn't about accountability, but it's about some technical resource or technical documentation you have. You've loaded a standard operating procedure or something in here. I can I can I can ask that questions and get really direct answers of what those things are to help in my design and development. But this also helps me build trust with the knowledge base. If it answers that question correctly and I'm happy with that answer, it then knows, I then feel confident that I'm building off of that solid foundation. A thing I did here by accident that I always like to kind of show, I'll say, can you tell me the core principles of the X factor? Um, and in this case, it doesn't talk about the X factor. And the tool should come back and tell me, I don't know what the X factor is. It's going to give me a little more about saying, hey, you might have meant X model and go dive in there. But this is anyone that's used generative AI will know that that's actually rather hard to get it to say no and not do something. And that's a lot of the grounding that we've worked into the tool so that you feel confident that what you're working off of is vetted and trusted information. Um, there was a question that came in that actually is really relevant. I kind of skipped this point, that everything I'm showing you here is all built in the secure Microsoft Azure tech stack. So it can be deployed in our secure environment or even deployed inside of a customer's environment if they have all the right services there. And it's using the Azure OpenAI services. So we did not build our own large language model. We're using the Azure OpenAI model, which is the latest GPT models that exist, with the multimodality and all the other things that kind of come with that. And we are layering alongside of that. So we're using pre-trained models so that when customers use this, or we use it with customers, you have your own dedicated instance of the tool. So your data is never commingled with any other customer's data, and it's never used for training or logged or for training large language models or any of those kind of things that go around there. So that was kind of a good question, and apologies, I should have brought that up front. If there's more questions around security, please feel free to put that in. I see we have people from all over West Texas. All right, maybe Marfa or something like that. It's a beautiful part of the country. So I get distracted sometimes. Back to knowledge bases. So we have our knowledge bases of trusted content. We feel confident that the information's right here. This can be our virtual SME. We can get some good value out of it, but we're really here to start to create some new learning experiences. And that's where we entered the concept of workspaces. So workspaces allow us to start to create new content on specific areas. So let's say I go into an emotional intelligence one, which was one of the knowledge bases. I can ground this workspace on a specific knowledge base and the content in there, or specific files that were loaded. So in this case, this is based off of an ILT and VILT set of presentations that are also linked in here. So everything I do, whether that's chatting with it or creating these outputs, will be grounded based on that information only. And you'll see an example of a chat here where I was asking it to help me come up with a practice activity to do in a live session and help me provide a breakdown of how I should run this exercise. So this is kind of your chat with experience. And you can still ask chat to do pretty much anything you want to help kind of build off of that knowledge. But where the outputs come in is where that expertise gets layered in. So let's say we want to start creating a new a course outline here. So I'll create this for a new course, or new starter course. And it's going to drop me in here. And this is going to be our kind of output agent workflow. And one thing you're going to notice before it starts doing anything, it's going to ask me some questions. These are built into the agent. So before it starts writing words, it's going to make sure it has all the right information to write these. Hey, what should be the target audience? What are some learning objectives? What other information should I know about it? I'm going to give it the bare minimum here and say, hey, base level understanding, new starters, be able to apply and use it in the daily work in less than 30 minutes. And you'll notice it's going to say, hey, you actually didn't tell me what it's about. So what's the subject? So this should be about emotional intelligence. And I could tweak it or give it something more precise if I wanted to in that moment. Um, but it's going to take that information and then it's hopefully going to start kind of processing the idea of a course outline for this. And we'll start to see kind of the generative bits start to pop up over here on the left-hand side. But this chat is always going to stay here because this becomes how I start to iterate with it. So if you've ever used something like Pages or canvases in ChatGPT, similar sort of concept. So here I can say, okay, it gave me that, and I could ask it if I want to break it down into multiple topics or things like that. But in the spirit of time, I'm going to keep this here, and I'm going to kind of push on and say, okay, let's say I want to now create a video script to go along with this course. So I'm going to call this the new starter video script. And it's going to drop me in here. In a similar thing, it's going to ask me some questions about like, hey, what is needed to create a high quality video? This allows me to kind of customize this. So I'll go ahead and I'll put some information in here so it can start to do that. And it's gonna start to kind of generate this content. I'll give this a second to see if it goes. And I want to show you a little bit of behind the scenes of kind of what's starting to happen as this is going and doing this. This is where those kind of prompt chains and expertise go in. So just this is a loop doc, but this is an example of the prompt chains for our assessment creation, where we're giving it specific instructions on how to craft good high quality assessments. We're giving it review checklists, all of those sort of things. Same thing with like podcast scripts or video scripts. We're giving it examples on how to do all of that stuff at a high quality and embedding that into the tool. So that you don't have to write prompts like this, because we know most people are not going to write prompts just like this. So when we pop in here, we'll see that, hey, this video script is being generated, and I think I've got most of it here. I can expand it out. So I see, hey, it's built me out a decent, I'll say, video script about this. And a couple things I can do here. I can say, hey, I could take this, I could give it to a human to read, be rather classic. Or I could start to push it into maybe a synthetic video tool. So we've added export connections. In this one, I have it wired up to Colossian, which is a synthetic video tool, where it's going to go hit their API and send all of this information over to Colossian to create a video based on this script. And this is always a live demo, so hopefully this works. And when it does this, it's going to come back and it's going to provide me a link over to Colossian, where I'll be able to see the draft video that it created, and then I'll be able to edit and tweak that video if I need to. Oops,
Hey,
of course, in
Jeff,
a
there
live demo.
was a question
Yes.
that came in if you want while that's doing that.
Oh yeah.
If you want to answer the question about
Let's
more
see. I
than
see.
output.
Is updated. So how often? Oh, I mean, well, so the tool is updated continuously. So like it's continuous development. So there's new features being added in all the time, and we're constantly working with our design team to add in those learning best practices, especially as new types of learning come out, where it's not just maybe creating an articulate file, but you're creating engaging chat experiences or things like that. This is always the fun. I'll do it one more time and we'll try to do it. So we're constantly embedding that in, and then we're also working with our customers to build custom agents with expertise that might be relevant to them as well. So if you have a different way of doing something, you can do that directly in the tool and kind of build that expertise come in. I think I see one other question in the chat here.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Can you select more than one output for a product? Yes. Absolutely. So yeah, you can kind of embed that all in. And third time was a charm. The joy of live demos here. And what we'll see here is it's going to take this video script, it's going to drop it into Colossian, and we will have a draft video with a synthetic human kind of reading it on this course of emotional intelligence. And we have multiple pages here, and I could click record, I could click publish on this, or I could tweak it. I could change the language, the speaker, the avatar, all of these things. So again, this is not the magic button that's going to get you 100% of the way there, but I'm pretty confident it's going to get you 70, 80% of the way there and really kind of improve the speed at which you're able to get new content out there. And you saw that we just kind of created this really quickly right out of the content that we had loaded in here. Another common area we get was assessments. I don't think I've met anyone that likes writing assessment questions. So I'll pull one up here that I've already created, and we create multiple different types of assessment questions. So it doesn't have to be just video or just multiple choice. But in here, again, same sort of prompt. You can ask it, I could iterate with it, but we've added some embedded things to kind of make this even easier. One, if I don't like a question, I can delete it or have it regenerate that whole question. I can also ask it to regenerate specific distractors. If I'm not happy with one, I can click that and it will regenerate that. And if I needed to create a question bank, I could say, hey, create 100 more questions about this topic in a question bank style, and it can do those sort of things. So you get the idea that it can really help accelerate how fast we can start to do a lot of the design and development work. So you'll see it regenerated that there. And we give you the ability to export this in Markdown, CSV, Excel, different formats as well, whatever formats you kind of configure in the platform as you're going. I think I see a question from Amanda. Does this integrate with Synthesia? We are working on an integration with Synthesia right now. So right now you can you can export it in Markdown. You can load it in, not copy and paste it, but you can load it into Synthesia manually. We are working on an API-based integration there as well, but Colossian has been our early partner and has been helping us with that. So thank you for that question. So you start to see the idea here that you get to start to create more and more of these outlines. I think in one other workspace here, I'll go to one, oops, not emotional intelligence, accountability. You can also ask it to start to do course script type elements where it helps you start to think through titles, content that might be on specific slides or workbooks. So this was an idea of an ILT. I think the prompt was help me create a 1-hour webinar. So an ILT type sessions. So you get the kind of idea here that you can use it throughout that whole process. All right, I'll pop back here. I think I see a question about integrate with the LF. So in two ways, a question about does it integrate with LMSs or LXPs? On the content library side of it, we can integrate with those to pull that in as source content to understand it. And then on the publishing side, right now, that's more on the human to take it and validate that information. We're not auto-generating content in this moment. It's very much a human plus kind of equation. So you could take it and then publish it to an LMS or LXP. One thing that we have seen integrated with LXPs is doing like metadata management. So maybe one of the things you want to do is actually better create learning objectives for existing content that you have, and you want to feed that into your LXP or tag content to skills. That content can be dynamically pushed to an LMS or LXP. And I'm loving all these questions. I see a question about, can it interpret SCORM packages? Yes, and I'll put a little asterisk there because SCORM can be a million different things. So I'll say authoring tools is certain support. So right now we're doing a lot of work to support Articulate, Storyline, and Rise, Gomo, Captivate, the popular tools that are out there. But any of those, you can build almost anything in a SCORM in an e-learning package. So I won't say all of it happens there, but we're working on building more adapters or interpreters that can take in existing e-learning and process that. one other thing I wanted to share as more questions come on is like when you start to build series of these outputs together, what you can start to get more value out of content. So one thing that this is a PDF export that was powered by AIQ, and I took an hour-long sales enablement session that we hosted inside of GP about skilling. And hour-long sessions are great. There's tons of good knowledge, and we record it. But sadly, as we all know, no one's ever going to go sit and watch an hour-long recording again. So we said, how can we start to make that a little more engaging? So we ran it through a series of agents in AIQ, where we asked it to come up with a title, one-liner description, target audience, again, some of this metadata type stuff so that we could categorize it better and recommend it to people. But then we detected the learning objectives that were coming in there and the excerpts of where that was covered with timestamps to get to that. So if people were searching for specific things, they could find those areas. We generated speaker summaries. Matt Donovan was kind of the main speaker in this one and talked about what keywords and topics he covered. Some of the other speakers that had different components and how long they were talking. Then we provided a detailed breakdown of what happened within specific moments with start time, so I could jump right to those segments of the video. And the key topics that were covered in those different areas. So again, repurposing a lot of long form content that had really good information in it. We have a weighting of the topics that were covered in there. So again, you see a kind of a topic weighting, keywords with weightings as well. Assessment questions based on that. So maybe we want to evaluate people's skills that are there. A marketing document, how should we promote that better, get people in there? And then for fun, we said, hey, pick a specific topic and write an engaging podcast script. And it came up with a title of the Skill Forward Podcast. And you see kind of an engaging script here where it used that output agent that I shared with you to kind of create a short 5-minute podcast about that, or sorry, this is like a 2-minute kind of podcast about that topic to get people interested in going into it. So the idea here is to be able to repurpose and get more value out of the existing content that you have and the investments that you have in a lot of the knowledge that exists in your organization. So that was a lot and really fast. I'm going to stop sharing, pop back in here, see if there's any other questions I missed, but also be respectful of everyone's time. And thank you all for coming today to learn more about Content AIQ. We'd love to do a deeper dive demonstration with you and show you more about how it could work within your own organization.
Yeah, and with that, Jeff, thank you so much. It was really interesting. I think it's a great product and a great tool, and I think something a lot of companies would benefit from. I want to thank Jeff for your time and expertise, and everybody else who was on the call today for your time and attention.
This webinar was brought to you by GP Strategies. Together, we help organizations transform through their people. You can access more webinars or download additional resources by visiting the GP Strategies Resource Library. The link is on your screen and in the description.